Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with Cowboy Bebop. Last time on Cowboy Bebop, we had Wild Horses, where Spike crashed his ship and called one of his old buddies to help fix it up. It was also the person was actually the guy that gave him that ship in the first place. Meanwhile, Jet and Faye were dealing with space pirates, and eventually Spike got back up there and tried to help, but he was going to crash to the Earth, so the old man went up in the old Columbia space shuttle that was modified for just taking off just with the shuttle, and he went up and he saved him, and that was pretty much it. It was a fun episode, so yeah. If you can tell by the way I'm talking right now, I'm very tired. It is the end of the day, and it's been a long, long day. So, what better way to end it than with a low-energy episode of Cowboy Bebop? So, like always, the reaction is in the description and in the pinned comment. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this episode of Cowboy Bebop. Here we go. You know, I've come to realize, and hear me out on this, and I don't know why it took me 20 weeks to really get this, but this show doesn't have a fucking plot. This show does not have a plot. Now, that said, there is a bit of an a recurring plot with Vicious, and presumably we are going to get more of that at the end. But for the most part, nope. That was thus passes another chapter. This will never come up again. And you know, it's magical. Because, like, maybe it's like now, like, and not just this episode, but I feel like in the past, like, couple episodes we've had, like, probably from maybe Bohemian Rhapsody or My Funny Valentine, I think I finally just, like, I feel like I've given into the madness, and I'm just like, alright, cool, you know? I don't know how to describe it, but I feel, like, it kind of feels like this. I've just given into the madness. It's like, alright, just, there. That was the plot, we move on. The plot was this weird, like, Batman episode almost. Like, this guy feels like a Batman villain, honestly. This invincible kind of cross between the Penguin and the Joker. And, I mean, the setting, this sort of, it's a theme park, but it's horrifying, And yeah, it's like, I'm really just sitting here like, yeah, there's no plot, and I'm just kind of accepting that. And honestly, because I think I've mentioned this, I think I mentioned this early on in this show, that I love the premise of this show, that it's just, average people. I mean, they are a bit above average in the things that they do, but for the most part, they are honestly kind of just average people. Like, there's no, like, super crazy amazing thing about them, But I like this idea of just average people going through space, but it's not like, it's not Star Trek, it's not Star Wars or anything like that. It's literally like, well, instead of going through normal cities and towns on Earth, they're just in space. And I love that. And I've had ideas for stories that are very similar to this, and one of them I remembered it in the middle of this episode, is basically that idea, except that the main character is basically a vampire. And so I had this idea of, like, yeah, you just go throughout space doing space adventures, except there's also, like, this sort of gothic horror aspect to it, And even though it's like, oh, well, the main character is a vampire, that doesn't actually mean too much about. Like, it doesn't mean like, oh, he's super powerful or he's got all these like destined things about him. It's like, no, that's just what he is, you know? And just because of the setting and the villain of this episode, like, I can just, like, it all just, like, flooded back to me. It's like, oh my god, wouldn't that be just, like, crazy? It would essentially be like if you've seen Castlevania. It'd be like if you had Alucard fighting this dude, you know? But at the same time, I like Spike being the one. I mean, now, of course, it's like, oh, you know, nobody's been able to beat him except our, you know, plucky hero, you know? But I mean, that's just kind of how it rolls with Spike a lot of times, you know? It's just that, yeah, people just happen to meet their end with Spike, you know? And it's not just that, oh, well, Spike is, like, he's special or something like that. It's like, no, he's really good, you know? Whereas everyone else, it seems this guy is killed, they tend to just be, like, you know, like, just rich people, you know? Spike, you know, he worked for the Syndicate. Presumably there is something a bit, you know, it makes him a bit more than, you know, the average person. But, you know, we don't see, like, because you guys pointed out that Vicious, most likely, you know, he does the red eye a lot, which is how, you know, in that episode he was able to, like, dodge bullets and stuff. Spike doesn't do that. But Spike is still an incredible fighter, you know? And so that's the thing. And it's the same with the Kid, long time ago with the Kid, where it's like, you know, the kid who never ages and stuff, where it's like, oh, well, it's Spike who figures it out. But it's not just that Spike is really good at what he does, but Spike has backup. And that is something that nobody else had against this guy, you know? Now, granted, his backup amounted to Faye coming in for like 5 seconds, but it was something. And, you know, he did have Jet and Ed looking for the weakness. You know, they were looking for this guy. You know, what is he? How do you beat him and stuff like that? So, and if he hadn't gotten that lucky shot, he may have had to have, you know, used that information. But that is the thing, is that Spike, you know, even though he does really feel like a loner, he does have people around him, and that does make the difference. That's also the reason why he was able to, you know, finally kill that kid, was because they figured out that, you know, the thing would, you know, return his aging to normal, you know? So I do really like that, you know? But yeah, like this, but I just love that, like, almost all of these episodes, with the only exception, at the moment, with the only exception being Jupiter Jazz, because that builds on excuse me, because that builds on Ballad of Fallen Angels, you know? And to an extent, I guess Speak Like a Child builds on My Funny Valentine, because you need to know that Faye doesn't have any of her memories, so that's why seeing the, you know, the tape of her as a child is so important, you know? So with the exception of, like, those 2 episodes, all of these episodes can be viewed in a bottle, you know? Like, every single last one of them, like, you could watch these in any order, pretty much. Like, with the exception of, like, character introductions. Like, you could show someone this episode who has never seen Cowboy Bebop, and they can probably understand, you know, like, okay, this is Spike, this is his team, they kind of get along, but they kind of don't get along, you know? And they just go and they do this thing. Like, you're not really, like, there's not a lot that you're missing from not having seen previous episodes, you know? And I really like that. And also the fact that this was just crazy. This episode was incredibly crazy, and I loved it. And it's stuff like this where it's like, yeah, I want to see more of that, you know? And I know there is a live-action Cowboy Bebop that Netflix made that got canceled after 1 season, and from what I hear, it wasn't very good, as are most Netflix anime adaptations. But I would love to see this type of show with just, like, none of this, because there are a lot of shows where it's like, you know, like, like on The Flash or something, it's like, well, can't he just stop a villain, you know? Like, we have all these overarching stories and stuff, and that's not just, you know, just that, but, like, everything has just these crazy overarching stories. It kind of reminds me a bit of... this is a weird reference, but this is just what came to my mind. Pirates of the Caribbean, actually, where the first movie is golden. The next two, they're pretty solid. They're pretty good, but, they obviously go together. The fourth and the fifth are kind of meh. The fourth one being better than the fifth one. The fifth one's not particularly good. But there's all, especially after the first movie, you get all this crazy, complicated stuff about pirates. And there was someone who just said one time, can't we just have Jack Sparrow go look for some treasure? You don't need to be, crazy. You don't need to be Lord of the Rings. You don't need to have all this overcomplicated stuff. Just go look for some treasure. It's a story about pirates, And there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I kind of get that, And definitely, especially having watched, because I'm looking at it right here, because I see this Prison Break Blu-ray over here staring me in the face. And Prison Break has gotten overly complicated in its fourth season. Granted, it's its fourth season, but it's always had some crazy plots going on. And a lot of shows do that, but honestly, sometimes you just want to watch just a fun adventure, you just want to watch something that is like, all right, and now we move on, And of course I say all this, and if you watch my reactions to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond is Unbreakable, you're probably thinking, oh yeah, is that how you feel? Then why didn't you care for it in that part? Because there was still a plot. The problem was that tried to have both, where it tried to have an overarching plot and also one-off episodes that didn't matter, and therefore, I couldn't get into either of them as much as I should have, Whereas this, it's no, there's a bit of a reoccurring plot once every blue moon we get a new thing with Vicious, but other than that, no, this episode was just about going to an amusement park and fighting the world's craziest man. That was it. And it's the same thing with, other shows I watch. Right now I'm watching Code Geass on my own, and I'm loving it. I'm loving Code Geass. Fuck, it is complicated, though. It is blinking you miss some shit, though. And, I'm rewatching, I'm rewatching Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's ridiculously crazy. It's I thought we were just here to play some cards. And it is just all over the place with this fate of the world and everything, And this had this really ridiculous, crazy guy that Spike had to fight. And I love, too, because, yeah, it's like Faye said, it's oh, you just go looking for trouble. It's he did not look for that. He just happened to walk in on this, and the guy just had to kill him. And, yeah, and then he invited him to a party. He laid a trap, and Spike walked right into it, but Spike won, So yeah, so all of that, but and then just on top of that, just the imagery in this episode was really, really great. Again, it's making me think of my friggin' idea of gothic horror, but in space. I kind of see a bit of that in here. Again, this looks like an episode of Batman the Animated Series, and I love that, and it's just so interesting to watch just this ridiculous stuff happening. But I also like that, again, there's nothing that special about our hero. This is a guy with a gun, and he just beat this dude who was designed, as the greatest assassin, It's ridiculous, but I love it. I absolutely love it. And luckily, he got that one shot on his knee, and that was enough to encumber him until the thing stepped on him. Which, this place is dangerous. Geez, man. This place is ridiculous. I don't know if this was shut down or if they just, if it was at night or something, but, man, Spaceland is crazy. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. And again, and it's I always say, it's these one-off episodes that I just really, really enjoy, It does make me curious, too, because I know after episode 22, we're gonna be watching the movie Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is Rohan Kashibe approved, by the way. I'll be very curious as to what we're doing in that. Like, is it just... I mean, it may just be just an overly long one-off episode again, you know? Just, you know, longer. I don't know how much longer. I'm going to have to figure that out. It's not on Netflix, so... But, yeah. But this was a really great episode. I really enjoyed it. And we're also in the final run. This was episode 20. We've got 6 more episodes... plus the movie. So we've got 7 more weeks of Cowboy Bebop, and then I gotta figure out what we're gonna be watching next. So yeah, if you have any ideas, by the way, if you have any suggestions for what anime I should watch after Cowboy Bebop, definitely drop a comment down, and I will pay attention to it. I'm thinking I might just start choosing what I watch on the channel now, because I'm also coming up towards the end of Prison Break, so I think I'm just gonna be choosing those instead of doing polls. But I don't know. We'll see. But that is basically it. With all that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist for all of my Cowboy Bebop reactions, as well as another video you can go click on if you want. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later. 気は過ぎ